All right, Alexander, let's do an update on the British economy. It's been about a month since we've talked about the British economy, maybe a bit longer. How is Starmer doing? Is he doing any better or is he doing a lot worse? I think he's doing a lot worse. But
he is doing
let's
extremely
hear it.
badly and much worse. I mean, I'm not going to say that the government is unraveling because that would be wrong. But apparently there are now growing doubts, even within the Labour Party, about Starmer. And there's some reports appearing that Labour MPs are starting to talk with each other and say that he can't lead Labour into the next election. Because one opinion poll, I believe, has shown that his popularity has now fallen below Rishi Sunak's when he was Prime Minister, which if true, I haven't seen this opinion poll, which if true, I mean, it's absolutely catastrophic. And I mean, it says something. Briefly, Britain is in recession. We've had revisions done to the GDP figures. It looks as if for the last couple of months, the economy has been stagnant. When people tell you that the economy is stagnant in Britain, what it really means is that it's in recession. And to the extent that there was a brief uptick in economic activity in the first months of this year, it's now being squelched. The Labour government budget killed it. I mean, the tax rises, the increases in borrowing, all of those things, upset and demoralized people even more. They were seen as a huge blow by the business community, which is bearing the brunt of the taxes. And the result is that, as I said, economic activity has slumped. So we are in recession. And as the recession bites, and remember, Starmer campaigned to become Prime Minister on the basis that he would make people's lives better, not worse. As the situation slumps, so does Starmer's popularity. The Conservatives, well, they've seen a small uptick in their popularity, but I don't think anybody's very inspired by their new choice of leader, Kim Badenoch. And you are now reading more and more articles in the British media, which are talking about the next Prime Minister of Britain being none other than Nigel Farage.
Musk is supporting him, right?
Musk is supporting him, which has spooked a large part of the British political class.
At least it looks like he's supporting him. I don't know if he's officially said it.
There is talk, and there's all sorts of fears that Musk might start financially backing Farage and all of that. But putting completely aside what Musk may or may not do, for the moment, the party and the political leader who has momentum is Farage. This is acknowledged right across the political spectrum. Mainstream media are talking about it. There's been articles about this in The Guardian, which is obviously supports the Labour Party, the Daily Telegraph, which obviously supports the Conservative Party. Across the board, there is now an acknowledgement that the real opposition in Britain and the potential alternative government is not the Conservative Party, which is dead in the water, but Nigel Farage and his movement.
So then why does Starmer go on and on about supporting Ukraine and sending troops to Ukraine? I'm reading articles saying that the UK military is in just a world of a mess.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
And you have no money, your economy's in recession. Is this just a distraction? Is he trying to trot out the Russian boogeyman in order to distract the British people from what's going on in the economy?
There may be some element of that. There may also be some element of Starmer himself believing in all of this. I mean, he's, bear in mind, his belief system is very much that of the neoliberal EU globalist majority. I mean, he's not somebody who was going to push back against the orthodoxies. But my own personal view is that to the extent that this is a political tactic, and I think ultimately it is, It is a way of communicating to the British political class, who collectively continue to be ardently supportive of Project Ukraine. They're going to be the last people in the world to give up on Project Ukraine. This is Starmer's way of communicating to them, telling them, look, despite everything going wrong, you need to go on backing me, because I am the one person who wants to keep Project Ukraine going, which means that I am someone who really, truly, you can rely on. And if you really do get rid of me, you can't be sure that the person who takes over is going to be as loyal and as reliable to your objectives as I am. So I think that is probably the purpose of this. But it's not popular, I think, with the British people. The wider, to be clear, the wider British public, most of them are not, hostile to Ukraine. They may not think much of Zelensky, but the British political conversation has never been as advanced about Ukraine as it has been in the United States. I mean, there's never been a real debate about Ukraine in the way that there has been in the United States. But I think what most people in Britain who think about Ukraine at all say to themselves is what they ask exactly the question that you are asking. That we might be quite sympathetic to Ukraine because we don't really know very much about what's going on there. But ultimately, we have much, much bigger problems, much closer to home.
And Trump? Is he patching up his relationship with Trump? Is he trying to?
Well, you see, this is where Starmer makes one mistake after another, at least in my opinion. I mean, as we remember, he sent 100 people to support Kamala Harris during the election. He's appointed officials like the Foreign Minister, David Lammy, who said unbelievably horrible things about Donald Trump in the past, which they've not, by the way, retracted, contrary to what many people think. And he's now decided to appoint as ambassador to Washington Peter Mandelson. Now, Peter Mandelson is very well known to many people in Britain because he was the eminence grise, if I can put it like that, of Tony Blair's cabinet. He was the man who many people thought created Tony Blair. He was the public relations director of the Labour Party back in the 1980s, and then he was instrumental in moving the Labour Party towards Clintonism, and he wanted someone who would be the British Clinton, and it was he supposedly who picked Blair. So just to say, I mean, yeah, that gives you an idea of the kind of man we're talking about. And of course, Mandelson is a fervid supporter of the EU. He was for a time the an EU commissioner. He, for a period, left British politics, went to Europe. He was the EU commissioner. He worked as a commissioner within the European Commission. Though it was not reported at the time, it seems that he was the real head of the Remain campaign during the Brexit referendum of 2016. I mean, nobody in Britain wanted to talk about this because Mandelson's reputation amongst the British people altogether is very bad. They don't like him. They see him as an intriguer, as somebody who's played a role in promoting policies that they don't like at all. So, there's all this background with Mandelson. And it's pretty well known that Trump and his people, who also know Mandelson quite well, don't like him either. And there are reports that they told the British government, look, we don't want Mandelson as the British ambassador in Washington. There's a very capable British diplomat, who is currently the ambassadress in Washington. She was apparently well respected, both by the Americans and by the British. It was suggested that the best thing to do might be to keep her on. Her term is due to end, but this could have been extended, or she could have been given an extra term. But no, Starmer nonetheless goes ahead and gives Mandelson this job and makes him ambassador to Washington. And we're reading all kinds of reports about what a brilliant masterstroke this is, because this man, with all his tremendous persuasive powers, his gifts, supposedly for persuading people to come round, he's going to be the person who's going to get very close to Donald Trump and is going to shape Donald Trump's thinking about Britain and Europe and Russia and Ukraine and all of those things. There are actual articles in the British media saying these fantastic and bizarre things. And again, what wonders, if people really believe that, what planet they're on, because anybody could see that Mandelson represents everything that the MAGA movement, the Donald Trump, that all of the others who are assembling and preparing to take over the US, I mean, they most dislike and they most despise. He's a globalist, a neocon in foreign policy terms, a Clintonite. I mean, he's exactly the sort of person that is going to raise their hackles. But, Starmer goes ahead and does that. Presumably Mandelson, who played a big role in helping Starmer to become leader of the Labour Party, and who also played a big role in shaping Starmer's election campaign, apparently, and entire political approach. He wanted a payoff. He wanted a cushy job in Washington. So to Washington, he's being sent, despite, as I said, that the Americans don't want him. Yeah. And they've made that clear.
Yeah, maybe Starmer doesn't really want to patch up his relationship with Trump or forward a better relationship with Trump.
He's
part of that crowd that just can't bring themselves to just accept Trump as president.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
he reminds me of those types of like Starmer and Ursula and all of these globalists. You have them in Europe. You have them in the United States. They just can't accept the fact that Trump's president, and so he doesn't want to.
I mean, that current of thinking most definitely does exist in Britain. I mean, just to give you one example, there's just been an article in The Guardian by Margaret Sullivan, who is one of the top journalists covering foreign policy in The Guardian, and especially in the American politics, and is, by all accounts, very well connected. And she spoke about Biden and said, that Biden is leaving the White House with characteristic decency. That's what she said. So, I mean, this is, after the Hunter Biden pardon, all of the other things. So, there are still people, in fact, there are a lot of people in Britain, particularly in Labour circles, who think in this way. And, the idea is, don't actually try to make up with Trump, because Trump is the adversary, he is the enemy. Try to use the specter of Trump as a way to argue, as is increasingly being done, by the way, that the way to avoid Trump, to resist Trump and his bullying and his aggression and his aggrandizement, is to seek the protection of the European Union, best of all by rejoining it. There is that line of argument. You can see this again in several articles that appear from time to time by all sorts of people who, are arguing that very thing, that the way to protect Britain from Trump is by rejoining the EU. So, maybe that's the logic behind the Mandelson appointment.
Yeah, send someone that's part of the Obama-Pelosi crowd.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, we'll end it there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch. like what we are wearing in this video. Update. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.